This is the all-new HGLRC Petrel 75 version 2 ELRS 1S whoop. And I'm just going to show you how to bind this to your ELRS radio. And if you already know how to do it and just wanted to see how it flies, jump to here. Alright, let's go. Before we begin, some fundamental knowledge for ELRS is your RX and TX. RX generally means your receiver, TX generally means your radio, are required to have the same firmware version both on either 2.x or 3.x for them to bind. And if your receiver is on 2.x and your radio is on 3.x, they are not going to bind together. It has to be both on 2 or both on 3. And the next is we have to identify the receiver type. The Petrel has a SPI-based ELRS receiver, which means your ELRS firmware version will be based on what Betaflight firmware version you have. And the Betaflight version that the Petrel has by default is 4.4.2, which indicates ExpressLRS 3.x. And if you're looking for ExpressLRS 2 or lower, you generally have to downgrade your Betaflight firmware version to 4.3 or below. And with the firmware version being at 3.x, this means our radio will also have to be at 3.x in order for them to bind together. And since my radio is already at 3.x, I don't have to touch either firmware to bind them. So if you wanted to know how to flash and make sure your radio is at ELRS 3.x, check the link right here for sample process. And now let's just go to the computer and we're going to try to bind this. Okay, so we have arrived at our computer, and obviously you are going to be required to preload your Betaflight, and I'm going to leave the download link right at the below description so you can go download it. Once you have it set up, all you need is to plug in your whoop using a USB cable to your computer, and it should connect to the Betaflight firmware. And with this, once it's connected, very simple. There are two ways to bind it. So the first method is we are going to go to the receiver tab. So a receiver tab, you're basically going to see there is a bind button option, and you're going to bring out your radio, and basically at the same time you're going to go to the ExpressLRS Lua script. Sorry, my other radio has no power, so I have to show you with this one, but the concept is the same. So for this particular one, I don't know why, but I'm required to turn on model match. So turn this on and off to see if it works. So I have to turn it on. Oops, okay, turn it on. And then we are going to hit the bind receiver, and you're going to hit bind right here, and it should be binding. And once done, once it's bounded, you are going to receive signals already on your stick inputs. And this is the first method. The second method is using the binding phrase method. By entering the binding phrase, you don't have to hit the bind button whatsoever. As long as you power up your quad and your radio, they should bind together. I already set up my binding phrase for my radio as 654321. And if you want to know how to set up your radio with the binding phrase, go check here. And since we already set up the radio, what we have to do right now is to also set up the RX. And since this has a SPI, we are going to set up our binding phrase in the Betaflight firmware. And we're just going to put in 654321 right here. And you are going to, we're going to refresh. Okay, actually we're going to hit save and reboot. Okay, so let's give it a test. So receiver, okay. So yaw, throttle, yaw, pitch, and roll. Okay, so the direction is correct. Next, we'll be going to the modes tab so we can set up our arm switch and the mode switch. So arm switch I like to use is this one, which is SF, and I set it up as aux1. So basically right here, and you're just going to make sure when you flip it, it goes to the yellow bars. I don't like it to be this long, so I'm just going to pull a little bit shorter. So when I flip it, you can see the little dot goes right there, which means this should be arming. And angle, I'm using the SE switch, which is this one. And I like to make sure that it goes to here. So angle mode generally is the default, and then it should go to, this is going to be our acro mode. And then the third one, we seems to be have a beeper. Third switch, so this will activate the beeper. And aux4, I believe, has set up the SC switch. So this is going to enable our flip after crash, so basically turbo mode. Okay, so once we have done setting, we should be able to go fly this directly. Let's go back to our bench so we can test it out to see if the motor spins. Okay, we're back to the bench. And we're just going to plug in a LiPo. Just make sure you plug it in correctly because it's quite confusing for this one. Okay, this is the correct side. And then let's put it down here and flip our arm switch to see if the motor actually spins.
RF signal critical. Telemetry recovered.
Okay, one more time. All right, so the motor spins. Okay, so now we have got this mounted, so we can go test flight.